We search for drug information in package inserts, lexicom, macromedics, and clinical pharmacology, and we identify drug interactions using tertiary drug databases. Now, given different intravenous drugs, let's check for compatibility when co-administered via the same IV line.
Now, one thing that's really important to understand before you check for compatibility is the concept of Y site. So as you can see here, this is a Y shape. And this is basically two different drugs coming through the same line. So down here would be attached to the patient. So you can have two different bags attached to the either tips of these two. Uh, uh, so it shapes a Y form. So you can see in this picture here that so once you have a line set up in the patient, here you have a bag that's being administered, and then here at the Y side you can also administer drugs in addition to what's going in the patient from the bag. So here's a Y side right here. So this is administration by syringe. You can also have two bags. Um, by the bedside. So these two drugs will be administered to the patient through the same line. So this is the Y site. I know not just drugs, but if there's blood being administered to the patient, Y site will be used, and also if the patient is on TPN. And the reason you need these Y sites because for example, TBN would be administered over several hours. So if it's time for the drug to be administered, then you need to set up a Y sign. Assuming that the patient only has one line. The reason this concept is important is that sometimes the drugs are not compatible to be mixed together. So although each drug is in a different bag here, once they come through the Y side, they will be mixed together. So there's the danger of precipitation or incompatibility. So that's why you should have access to drug information to check for compatibility if two drugs are to be administered through a Y site. Now, an excellent source that we have for checking compatibility is the Handbook on Injection Drugs. The 19th edition, which is the latest edition, is available on StatRef, and I'll show you how to use StatRef in a little bit. But basically, when you look up a drug on the handbook on injection drug, there are four types of information that you can get. So you can get solution compatibility, and this is the legend. And I'll show you how to get this. But when you get it, so this is the legend of what these mean. So manufacturer, concentration, etc. The second type of information it will give you is additive compatibility. So if you were to add something to a drug in the same bag, the question is, will they be compatible? So the first one is the solution itself. So if you are mixing a drug in a bag, is it compatible with normal saline, for example, or is it compatible with D5W or any other types of solution? So you will get that information from here. The second one is if you actually add a second agent or a third agent. And then the third one is drugs in syringe compatibility. So if you were to draw, two drugs in the same syringe, you need to know if they're compatible. So that's where you get that information. And then the last one is Y site injection compatibility. So if you were to set up a Y site, then you need to know if they're compatible. So if you're on one portal, you can go under apps and under clinical desktop. And then from here, you can click on StatRef. And then from here, you can basically search for handbook on injection or injectable drugs. And here you can see that you have access to this book. So this is the 2017 19th edition. So you click it, and then you can search for. You can either search for drugs. You can also you can see that this is organized by alphabet. So let's say if you were looking for the drug cefepime, you can go under C, and then you can look for cefepime right here. So then here's information about cefepime. It basically tells you about the product. It tells you about administration. It has information about stability. And if you scroll down, that's where you get to compatibility information. So the first compatibility information is about solution compatibility. So it will tell you For example, if you have dextrose 5%, um, let's see what it says. So the 1 gram visually compatible. So if you see, it's either C or I. C means compatible, I means incompatible. So you can see cefepime is actually pretty compatible with every solution that's out there. And then the second type of compatibility is with additives. So if you were to add something to the drug, so you can see like with amikacin, it says compatible, uh, versus with ampicillin, it's incompatible. And it also gives you references. So if you wanted to question this, like, is this really truly incompatible, you can click on the reference and figure out where they got this information. And if you scroll down, here's the Y site injection. So it shows you that cefepime is incompatible with amphotericin B, for example. It is incompatible with caspofungin, and it is incompatible with dobutamine, etc. So you can see. Now, it didn't have information on compatibility in the syringe because it's unlikely that you will be administering cefepime and other drugs in the same syringe. You need to mix it with solutions. Now, if it was a drug that had that option, then you would have that information. So let's take a look at heparin, for example. So under H, you can click on heparin. So here's I clicked on heparin, and if you scroll down, again you see information about stability, and then you scroll down, there's solution compatibility, and if you scroll down, there's additive compatibility. Keep scrolling down, and you will see here's drugs in syringe compatibility, and lastly, you will see Y site. Now let's take a look at lexicom. So if you go to lexicom, if you click on IV compatibility, it will take you here. You can search by drug. So let's say if I put heparin, you can also add solutions if you were interested if your drug is compatible in a certain solution. In this case, I'm gonna check and see if heparin and gentamicin are compatible. So you can add as many drugs as you want. So I have added 2 drugs here, and then you click on analyze. So once you click on analyze, here's the legend. So C means compatible, I means incompatible, and U means variable. So there may be some studies that showed compatible and some studies that showed incompatible. And then this X would mean no data to support. So now in this table, you can see that there are information about the Y side. So in the for the Y side, the compatibility of these 2 drugs, there's variable results. With that mixture, there's also variable results, and in the same syringe, they are incompatible. So you should not mix the 2 in the same syringe. Now let's take a look at the Y side. So you can see that one study said that it is compatible, and then pretty much the rest of them say incompatible. So you wonder how come pretty much all of them found incompatibility except one. So if you click it, you can get more information. So when you click it, you can see that it says these 2 drugs are compatible, but this is not a usual um, way of giving the drug. So this is actually in a antimicrobial antimicrobial lock. So lock solutions are actually meant to um, not be systemically administered to the patient, so it doesn't really go into the patient. It actually stays in the line in order to make sure that the catheter doesn't get infected. So it's not actually being administered. So for the lock solution, they're saying it's compatible. Now if I go back to the compatibility chart to the Y site, so if you click on the next one, um, you can see that it says um, This one doesn't say log solution, so this is the actual administration of these two, so they're not compatible. Let's take a look at the third one. The third one also uh, says, so you can see this is from an article, incompatibilities intravenous solution. So this is actually intravenous. It's not in the lock. It's not the lock solution. We can also go to macromedics. So if you go to, so let's say from the macromedics home. So once you're on a macromedics, you click on IV compatibility, and then here you can add, you can search for, let's say, heparin, and you use this to add it to your list, and then you search for, let's say, gentamicin, and you click the right arrow to add it, and then once you have your drugs of interest in your list, then you submit for analysis, and then you get the results. There you go. So now here it says Y site, it says variable. For admixture, it also says variable, and for the same syringe, it says incompatible. So you get similar information in macromedics also. And then if you wanted more information, if you click it, it will open and show you specific studies. So the one that's compatible, again, this is for a log solution. Whereas the rest of them, this one actually is kind of nice because it actually gives you a summary of all these studies in one page, so you don't have to keep clicking on each. So I kind of like this macromedics for this purpose better. Now let's take a look at how to do this on the app. So if you go to the lexicom app, you can actually click on the IV compat, and then you can add drugs. So you can add gentamicin, and then you can add drug, you can add heparin, and you can also add solution if you wanted to, and then you run analyze, and it gives you the same information. So if I click for the Y site, it will show you all of those studies again. So if I click the first one, then it shows you those findings.